Mirror on the wall, reveal my next sacrifice.
Oh, Grace? The new choir member? I'm going to enjoy this. You have a job to do for me.
The city of Asaba had seen many churches rise and fall, but none captured people's hearts quite like Mountain of Glory International Ministry. Every Sunday, thousands filled the massive cathedral hours before service began. Some came hoping for healing. Some came believing the pastor could solve problems that doctors, lawyers, and even their own families could not. Others simply wanted to witness the miracles they had heard about on television. Outside the church compound, luxury cars stretched for nearly a kilometer. Street vendors sold bottles of anointed oil, handkerchiefs, and photographs of the senior pastor. His name was Pastor Elijah Adesina. To the world, he was a humble servant of God, a father to the fatherless, a helper of widows, a generous man whose charity foundation paid school fees for hundreds of children every year. People called him the prophet who never misses. If he prophesied that a barren woman would conceive, she usually returned months later with a pregnancy. If he declared that someone would receive a promotion, many testified it happened. Television stations broadcast his crusades across Africa. Politicians visited him before elections. Businessmen donated millions to his ministry. Celebrities sought his blessings before major events. Everyone wanted to be connected to Pastor Elijah. Everyone, except one elderly woman. Every Sunday morning, Mama Deborah sat quietly at the back of the church. She never clapped when miracles were announced. She never rushed forward for prophetic words. She simply watched. Sometimes she cried. The younger members thought she was jealous, but Mama Deborah wasn't jealous. She was afraid because she remembered the man Pastor Elijah used to be. 25 years earlier, Elijah had been a struggling preacher. His congregation consisted of only 7 people. His roof leaked whenever it rained. Some Sundays, even his own wife was embarrassed to attend. There were days when they had only one meal. His children often went to bed hungry. He prayed, he fasted, he cried before God. Yet nothing changed. Meanwhile, younger pastors around him built beautiful churches and drove expensive cars. Jealousy slowly entered his heart. One rainy evening, after another disappointing service, Elijah slammed his Bible onto the wooden table inside his tiny office. "God," he shouted, "I have served you faithfully for 10 years. My children are hungry. My wife wears the same clothes every Sunday. Why are wicked men succeeding while I remain poor?" His wife, Rebecca, quietly entered the room carrying a plate of boiled yam. "Elijah," she said softly, "the children haven't eaten. They want you to join them." Instead of answering, he pushed the plate away. "I am tired." Rebecca stared silently at her husband. She had never seen anger like this before. That night, Elijah didn't sleep. Instead, he left the house shortly after midnight. Rebecca watched him disappear into the darkness. She whispered to herself, "Lord, please don't let desperation lead him somewhere he cannot return from." She had no idea that her prayer had already become a race against time. because waiting for Elijah beyond the edge of the village was a man who never attended church. A man people avoided mentioning after sunset. A man known simply as the keeper of the forest.
Spirits of the Shadow Grove, awaken! By bone and blood I summon thee! Rise from the depths, claim the night! The pact is sealed!
And before dawn, Pastor Elijah Adesina would make a decision that would change not only his life, but the lives of thousands who would one day call him Man of God.
The rain had stopped, but the forest still dripped with water. Pastor Elijah pulled his faded coat tightly around himself as he followed the narrow footpath. Every step felt heavier than the last. Several times he almost turned back. His conscience screamed at him. What are you doing? You are a preacher. Go home. But then another voice echoed in his mind. Go home to what? Another day of watching your children cry because there's no food? Another Sunday preaching to empty benches? His fists tightened.
No, he whispered. I've suffered enough. At the end of the path stood a small mud house surrounded by enormous Iroko trees. There was no light, no sound, yet Elijah had this strange feeling that someone already knew he had arrived. Before he could knock, the wooden door slowly creaked open. An old man stood inside. His beard was as white as ash. His eyes looked unusually bright. You are late, the old man said calmly. Elijah's heart skipped. You were expecting me? The old man smiled. I have been expecting you for 3 years. A cold breeze swept through the doorway. Elijah hesitated. Come in. The room smelled of burning herbs and old wood. Shelves lined the walls, filled with calabashes, carved figures, dried leaves, and ancient-looking books. The old man poured water into a wooden cup. Drink. Elijah refused. The old man laughed. Good. You still have some fear left. He sat opposite Elijah. You came because heaven has remained silent. Elijah said nothing. You prayed. You fasted. You sowed seeds. You trusted. And nothing happened. Still, silence. Then the old man leaned closer. But now, you want power. Elijah looked up in shock. I never said that. You didn't have to. The old man smiled again. Desperate men all speak the same language. Minutes passed in silence. Finally, Elijah spoke. I only want my ministry to grow. I want people to know God. The old man chuckled. That is how every man begins. He opened an old leather book. Tell me, if tomorrow you could fill stadiums, if kings bowed before you, if money flowed into your ministry, if television stations fought over your sermons, if every prophecy came to pass, would you accept it? Elijah swallowed. Yes. The old man nodded slowly. There is always a price. He explained that every gift offered without truth eventually enslaves the one who receives it. He promised influence, wealth, and fame but one that each choice would demand another compromise. What kind of price? Elijah asked. The old man looked at him for a long moment. A price that becomes harder to ignore each time you choose it. Elijah's breathing became shallow. He stood. I cannot do this. He turned toward the door. Before his hand reached the handle, the old man spoke quietly. Rebecca cried herself to sleep tonight. Elijah froze. Your eldest daughter needs school fees by Friday. Your landlord plans to evict you next month. Your youngest son has been ill for weeks. Elijah slowly turned around. How do you know all that? The old man answered only with a sad smile. Every temptation begins by speaking to a real pain. Those words lingered in the room. For a long time, neither man spoke. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Finally, Elijah lowered his head. What do I have to do? The old man did not answer immediately. Instead, he closed the leather book. If you walk this path, he said, you will spend the rest of your life deciding whether to tell one more lie, hide one more secret, or turn back before it is too late. Elijah stared at the floor. He was exhausted, hungry, ashamed, and convinced there had to be another way, yet unable to see it. The old man placed a sealed envelope on the table. Take this. Don't open it until you are alone. If, after reading it, you choose to forget this night, burn it. If you choose otherwise, you already know where to find me. Elijah picked up the envelope with trembling hands. Without another word, he walked into the night. By the time he reached home, dawn was breaking. Rebecca was waiting outside. Her eyes were red from crying. Where did you go? Elijah forced a smile. I was praying. She searched his face. For the first time since they had married, she felt as though she was looking at a stranger. Inside his pocket, the unopened envelope felt heavier than a stone. He told himself he would throw it into the fire. He truly intended to. But before the sunset that evening, curiosity would lead him to break the seal. And from that moment on, nothing in his life would ever be the same. The sun had barely risen when Elijah locked himself inside his tiny study. The envelope lay on his table. He stared at it for several minutes. His conscience urged him to throw it into the fire. His desperation urged him to open it. Finally, he broke the seal. Inside was a single handwritten letter. There was no greeting, no signature, just one sentence. If you truly desire power, return on the night of the new moon, alone. Beneath the sentence was a map leading deep into the forest. Elijah folded the paper immediately. No, he whispered. I won't go. He shoved the letter into a drawer and walked away. For 3 days, he tried to forget it. He immersed himself in fasting. He preached passionately. He prayed longer than ever before. But every time he stood behind the pulpit, the church was almost empty. one Sunday, only 5 people attended. One of them slept through the sermon. Another left before the offering. When the service ended, the offering basket contained just enough money to buy a loaf of bread. Elijah sat alone in the sanctuary. His shoulders slumped. His Bible lay open before him. He prayed through tears. Lord, if you still want me to serve you, please help me. The room remained silent. Meanwhile, Rebecca was fighting a different battle. Their eldest daughter, Esther, had been sent home from school because they could not pay her fees. Their second son needed new sandals. Their landlord had issued a final warning. The roof leaked so badly that every rainfall flooded 2 rooms. That evening, Rebecca cooked the last cup of rice in the house. She divided it carefully. 5 children, 2 parents. No one had enough. As she watched the children eat quietly, tears rolled down her cheeks. She turned away so they would not notice. Late that night, Elijah opened the drawer again. The envelope was still there. He picked it up. I'll only hear what he has to say, he told himself. I'm not agreeing to anything. It was a lie. Deep down, he already knew why he was going. The night of the new moon arrived. Dark clouds covered the sky. The forest seemed unusually quiet. The old man was already waiting beside a dying fire. You came. Elijah nodded. I came for answers. The old man motioned for him to sit. There are 2 roads before every servant of God. The first is slow. It demands patience. It requires obedience. Sometimes it brings little recognition. The second road promises quick success. It feeds pride. It demands secrecy. And every compromise makes the next one easier. Elijah listened without interrupting. You asked why your ministry has not grown. There are many reasons ministries struggle. Timing, resources, leadership, and life's hardships. But if a shepherd begins chasing influence instead of truth, he can lose himself. The old man leaned forward. So tell me, Elijah, what do you truly want? Elijah hesitated. Then, with tears in his eyes, he answered, I don't want my children to suffer anymore. For a brief moment, the old man's expression softened. That is a father's love. He paused. But never let love become an excuse for abandoning your convictions. Those words hung in the air. Then the old man reached into a wooden box and brought out a small carved object. He placed it on the table. You still have a choice. If you walk away tonight, forget this place. Go back to your family. Live an ordinary life. It may not be easy, but you will remain free. Elijah looked at the carving. Then he looked toward the dark forest. His mind raced. He imagined his hungry children, his unpaid bills, his empty church, his wounded pride. He also remembered the joy he once felt preaching, simply because he believed God had called him. The silence seemed endless. Finally, he whispered, "I don't know what to do." The old man stood. "Then don't decide tonight." He wrapped the carving in cloth and handed it back to Elijah. "Take nothing from this place except a warning. The greatest prisons are built one compromise at a time." Elijah slowly walked home before dawn, carrying not power, but a heart divided between ambition and conviction. He did not yet realize that the next decisions he made would shape the course of his life, his family, and eventually an entire congregation.